Hello, everyone. Very good evening. A warm welcome to the webinar on pre-primary topic today. Can you all hear me? Can you please confirm by raising your hands? Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get started. So today the session is on the topic Hear It, Say It, Read It and Write It. And this is a part 2 of the webinar. We had part 1, the half of the session with 2 skills discussed on Feb 18th. I'm not sure how many of you were present for that session. Were anybody present for that session? Oh, great. Thank you. So we'll just quickly do a small recap of what we did on Feb 17th and then continue for the session today, right? I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see my screen, teachers? Yes. Right. Great. So, so this is a session that we started off on Feb 18th, and we wanted to discuss all the skills of language, trying to understand the journey from listening to emergent writing. And we discussed 2 skills, which is listening and speaking in the last session. Just give me a moment. Right. So we were trying to understand the journey of the 4 language skills from listening to emergent writing. And we were trying to see how all the 4 skills are important and how one skill is connected with the other skill and how we can ensure perfect language development in the early years. So in that process, we discussed 2 skills, the listening and the speaking in the last session. So let us look at a small recap of what we did. So, so we started off with a small quote by Louisa Moats, which says, if they can't hear it, they can't say it. If they can't say it, they can't read it. And if they can't read it, they can't write it. And hence all the 4 skills are important. And the first and the foremost important skill is listening. And the journey of this language matters because language grows naturally. And if there is a push or a pressure in the early years, it harms their confidence. And this confidence, if it gets affected, that impacts all the 4 skills. And so readiness is very, very important before we expect the child to perform. And children learn language naturally in sequence and not through worksheets. Most of the time, I see all teachers asking for more number of worksheets. Ma'am, we want more worksheets. Ma'am, if children do more number of worksheets, language building happens. But it is not always right. Language learning doesn't happen through worksheets. Worksheets should be the last aspect of language learning. But there are other skills that need to be focused in early years. Let us see what they are. Right. So a bit of understanding in terms of why language journey matters. When we rush letters, what happens? We weaken the language. Because when we visit schools, we see teachers saying that we finished all the letters, 26 letters of the alphabet, whether they do it in the phonetic approach or in the regular ABC approach. They say by October, we finished everything. So what happens? We are weakening the language when we rush letters. If the child is not understanding the sound of the letter, not understanding the formation of the letter, not understanding the vocabulary related to the letter, then we are finally ensuring that the language is weakened there. So let us not push or rush the letters. Let us ensure strong foundations to prevent future learning gaps. Right? So this is a language journey that I am proposing. Hear it, say it, read it, and write it. And no stage should be skipped because each one prepares for the next. So this is something which we as teachers need to definitely remember. And language develops through listening, speaking, meaning making, and expression, not formal reading and writing. And this journey mirrors how children learn their mother tongue. How are children learning their mother tongue? It is just through listening, speaking, and meaning making, and they are expressing it. And they are not formally reading and writing. So that's why children are so strong in their mother tongue, because this journey is happening in this process, right? Now, let us look at listening as a skill. Let us understand what we discussed last time. So listening is not silence. It is active understanding. So there is a lot of difference between listening and hearing. So listening is active hearing and hearing is inactive listening. Listening improves when activities are playful and purposeful. And we discussed a few activities like Simon Says, clap pattern, copy, sound guessing games, freeze game, treasure hunt with verbal cues, draw and do or listen and draw, and movement instructions, and clean up directions game, obstacle courses where children listen your instructions and cross the obstacle course and pass the sound. This helps children understand the sounds, and that's how they will be able to repeat the sounds and blend and read the words. Right? So key takeaways: give short and clear instructions for listening. Start with one step. So probably when we are discussing with the nursery students or dealing with nursery students, we need to give one instruction. LKG, 2 instructions at a time, following by 3 instructions in UKG. So when we rush instructions, what happens? Children will not be clear, and they literally lose interest in listening. And use visual cues with instruction. Gain attention before speaking. If you want children to listen, first you need to grab their attention and repeat instructions calmly. Important instructions have to be repeated, and use signals and routines. So this is how you will build a proper listening segment in the classroom, or listening routine in the classroom, which helps children listen and model good listening behavior. When children are speaking to us, I think it is our important responsibility to focus, look into their eyes, look at them, nod their head. You show that you're listening. This should happen when children are speaking to you one-on-one, right? And reduce background noise during instructions. So ensure that while you're giving instructions, you have very, very minimal background voice, and use listening games. Simon Says is one of them. You have many listening games, and appreciate listening behavior. If children are listening, they need to know that this is the good behavior, and so appreciate it. And give processing time. Most of the time we give one instruction and we don't wait for the children to process. Children take time to process. And so it is important for us to actually give that processing time and check understanding. What did I say? Did I tell you to open your textbook or a notebook? Notebook, right? Yes. Open the notebook. All of you stand in line. All of you stand in line. What did I tell you? Stand in line. Fold your hands, all of you. All of you fold your hands. What did I tell you? Fold your hands, right? So check understanding, because our instructions, I need to know as a teacher if my instruction has reached the child. For that, it is important for us to check understanding. So this is all about listening. Let us see what we discussed about speaking. Children speak when they are safe, not when they feel judged. A very important line. So children are speaking, so they should speak just because they have to speak, not just because they are evaluated or judged or assessed. And here are a few speaking skills activities: the talk time circle, the picture talk, role play corners, show and tell, action talk, mystery bag talk, puppet talk, story retell, pair talk, describe and guess, question ball, finish the sentence, And weekend sharing, this can be done on a Monday morning. So as soon as the children come, ask them to share what did they do on a Sunday or a Saturday evening, what happened on both the days. I think every week you can actually select one or two children to actually share. And classroom reporter, on by turns, every week there can be one classroom reporter in your class who can actually report what happened. It could be on a daily basis, or it could be on an alternate day, or it could be on a weekend. It could be any time, the way you want it to happen. Now, these are the key takeaways. Model, don't correct. Expand child's language. Give wait time. Ask open-ended questions. Use sentence starters and talk during play. And another important aspect also, repeat new vocabulary in context. So I see a lot of teachers, we all do a lot of vocabulary for each letter. If you look at Next Education, we are doing about 16 to 18 words, at a lower kindergarten level to actually build vocabulary. So doing that vocabulary independently without a context doesn't make sense for a child. So I am teaching a child apple wherever possible, use apple in context. I saw a red apple, we went to market, we bought 4 apples. Yesterday, my neighbor went to market, they bought green apples. We had only 1 apple, but there are 3 children. So what should I do? Should I cut into 3 parts or 4 parts? I mean, how do I share this apple? So when you're talking about vocabulary, ambulance, yesterday while I was coming on the road, I saw a sound horning, a white vehicle with a bulb glowing, and then there is a horn that is beeping throughout the journey. What could that be? That is an ambulance. Ambulance starts with the letter A and the sound A. So when you're actually using the vocabulary in context, that's how children pick up, and that's how they also start speaking. And encourage peer conversation. Use visuals to support speaking. Celebrate effort, not accuracy. And keep speaking routines short and frequent. So probably you can have a small speaking routine, maybe in the morning assembly, maybe, fix up a day. It could be on a Tuesday and a Friday, or it could be on a Wednesday and a Friday, or Wednesday and Thursday. Some speaking routine. It could be a show and tell activity. It could be a picture talk activity. It could be an object talk activity. That is how children, overcome that fear of speaking also, and then they will not have those inhibitions to speak. Right? And this is what we discussed, teachers. Any doubts till this point of time? Right. So if that is the case, I can move on. Great. So we'll discuss the remaining 2 important skills, which are, the literacy skills, which is the reading and the writing. Now, a child is looking at the picture and he's telling the story. Is that reading, teachers? Is that reading? Yes or no? You can actually type. No. Okay. Preeti says yes. Sahaya says interpretation. Ishrat says no. Okay. No. Nirmala says yes. It is picture reading. Yes. A kind of speaking with picture. Yes, it is picture reading. If the child is looking at the picture and he is trying to tell a story, that means he read the picture. Similarly, the child is pretending to read from his memory. Is that reading? Yesterday, I went to the market along with my dad. Is that reading? That is narration. So in the form of speaking. But is that, yeah, it is sharing experience. It is speaking. It is not reading. It's not reading. Preeti ma'am says, yes, it's reading. Reading his mind. Teachers, that is also reading. The child is pretending to read from his memory. That means it is also reading. So he is recollecting the scenario, the picture that he had seen. That means he read that picture, he read that scenario, he read that environment. So he's recalling that environment. He's recalling and he's reading that environment. He read that environment already and he is actually presenting it to us. So that is also reading. A child is recognizing logos and signs. Is that reading? Yes, it is object reading. It is like pictures. The child is looking at the picture and he is able to tell what it is. It is reading. The child is recognizing logos and signs. It is reading. The child predicts what happens next in the story. Is that reading? The child is predicting. Yes, that is also reading. So he read all the pictures and then he is guessing what happens next. So that is also reading. So much of reading is happening in our classrooms, teachers, and still we are only wanting the child to read the text. I think that is something which we as teachers need to, keep that in mind. Right. Is reading in preschool spelling, reading sentences, forced decoding? Is that reading? Actually, yes, that is what we are doing. And some questions for all of us to reflect on what we are doing. Are we valuing meaning making more than perfect decoding? Is that meaning making happening in our class? 100%. Are we correcting too quickly instead of expanding language? Yes, sometimes. Agree, ma'am. Saya, ma'am, agree. Are we correcting too quickly instead of expanding language? I agree, Sultana, ma'am. Reading is important, but understanding is more important. We are correcting too quickly instead of expanding a language. Are we giving children enough time to think before answering? I think this is something which we all need to inculcate in our classrooms starting now. Are we creating safe spaces for children to speak freely? Speaking opportunities for children in the class. If we are giving, I think nothing like it. Now we are practicing for that. Very good, man. Very good. We are being judgmental in the classrooms. I completely understand. Are we recognizing early literacy in its many forms? What are the forms of early literacy? Are we recognizing early literacy in its form, in its many forms? What are the forms of early literacy? Anybody? Any guesses? We learn to speak. Recognition of things around us. Advanced reading, listening. Great. Phonics, probably to some extent. Vocabulary, communication. Poetry at a later level. Actions also contributes to reading and speaking. Great. Drama, role play. Yes, these are all strategies. Rhymes, stories, actions, listening to sounds. Yes, signs and symbols. Great teachers, great. So reading starts with understanding, not with letters. Prediction is a powerful reading behavior. Children read pictures before they read words. So when we talk about reading, it's not always with letters. It is something beyond that, right? So most of the time, when we do it in the classroom, we give a direct instruction. The direct instruction is like, this is letter A. A says A. What does A say? How many of us are really questioning children, helping children predict to help that reading happen? Does this start with A? We are not even giving that space, giving that pause time, giving that environment for children to help start reading. I think that is something which is really, really the focus of this session for me. If we don't help children predict, reading doesn't happen. How many of us really ask children as soon as they come into the classroom, what do you see in the classroom, something new today? Do you see something that starts with B in the classroom today? Early in the morning, not while you're doing letter B. How many of you have brought snacks that start with B today? Somebody must have bought banana. It is just a 2-minute affair for all of us to actually help children predict, right? And that is where our preschool classrooms. Good, ma'am. Yes, if you're doing it in circle time, Uttara ma'am, it's really, really good. So children read pictures before they read words. So our classrooms have to be more picture oriented, more colorful, and you don't need to actually set it up. You can actually pass it on this as an assignment for children, telling them that they need to bring one picture every Tuesday or every Friday. So your classroom is completely full of pictures that will actually help. So when you do your circle time, or when you do your letters, or when you do your literacy class, and that is, you can actually use all these pictures, and then you can actually help children do reading and speaking. As simple as that. One picture from a magazine. It could be anything. It could be any picture. That will help you do a picture talk in the class. Yeah. Right? So when you're changing boards, lovely point, ma'am. So it should not be only to the boards. It should be everywhere. So your entire classroom should speak. Your entire wall should speak. Right? I don't know how many of you actually have labels for all the things that you have in the classroom. Labeling everything in a preschool classroom is essentially very, very important to help children read. Right? Your tables, your chairs. Yeah, ma'am, you're doing it for themes. Yeah. Right? Yes. If you're really having it, wonderful. Nothing like it. That is such a beautiful gesture to actually have labels for every aspect of a classroom. Right? So as I said, reading is also picture reading. Reading is predicting. Reading is recognizing symbols. Reading is print awareness. So sometimes nowadays we are seeing children, flipping the book. Recently I came across a couple of incidents with children, especially the ones, 2.5, 2-year-old children. So children are now actually reading so much on the mobile phones. My observation, I don't know how many of you must have observed this. So while watching, if they are watching a video, they kind of flip the mobile, right? So we usually hold the mobile this way, right? But when you have a video, you flip it like this, right? This way, this way. Otherwise, we usually hold it this way, right? So now I gave a book to the child, and the child was looking at the book like this, and he immediately flipped like this. No, because the child doesn't understand print, right? He doesn't know. So this print awareness is something in terms of how you hold a book, how you read from left to right, how you read from top to bottom, right? With the use of mobile phones, so you have something at the bottom first, right? If you have to scroll down, scroll up, it is always you start from bottom up. So now children are really getting confused when they start using a book. Should it be from bottom up or top bottom? Right? This is something which was really worrying me. It really worried me. And now I think as teachers, we need to constantly reinforce, especially in the early years, that children need to read the book from top to bottom. We don't write books from bottom up, right? So it should always be from top to bottom. So this is something related to print awareness, reading readiness, right? So tracking text from left to right. It is always from left to right, right? So that is something. Turning pages correctly, understanding that print carries a meaning, right? It is not something which doesn't have any meaning, because for the child doesn't understand text. He doesn't understand print. So we will have to help them understand that print carries meaning, right? Here is a small reading routine, which I had actually bifurcated and set it up for 10 minutes, right? So when you're looking at a reading, so it can just be a picture. So picture walk, children observe the picture for 2 minutes, then they read the picture aloud. If it is text, they observe the text and then they read the text aloud. Uh, Initially, teacher can model, teacher will read it aloud. Repeated line participation. So you read one line and the child repeats. If it is a picture, you name the picture, name the object, name the environment. Children will repeat after you, and a quick comprehension questions, 2 minutes, and then retell or act it. Either ways, if the child is okay acting it out, otherwise you can read. If it is a kite, right? This is a kite, right? So similarly, that's how it is. So this is a small reading routine. Maybe I'm not sure, how you can incorporate this daily. Probably you can have it weekly, twice or thrice, and then you can actually use a lot of pictures and small stories, small incidents, a small 5-line paragraphs to actually do this reading routine, and which is now readily available on the internet. You can actually, you have a lot of information on the internet, so you can actually pick up something of your choice and then do this small reading routine, probably weekly twice, which will really help children build reading. Now, some strategies. So read aloud daily. It is really important. So while you're reading aloud, I see teachers saying aloud. It's not saying, it's always reading. So children need to have a book, teacher needs to have a book. So print has to be read aloud daily. I don't see teachers reading stories word by word. I think by the end of nursery, you should start pushing it. I know the child doesn't understand, but still, it is building that reading habit in children. So I request all of you to actually do this read aloud daily for just 3-4 minutes, not more than that, and build vocabulary through stories. Discuss a lot of vocabulary. Suppose if we are doing a story called a Lion and the Mouse, for example, and then you start the story and you describe the background of the story. Where did the story happen? The story happened in a forest. What happened? What is a forest? Is forest like our town and a city? Does a forest have a mall? Does a forest have a movie theater? Do they sell pizzas and burgers in a forest? Do they have a school? Do they have a drawing class? Do they have so this is how you actually build vocabulary while talking to children, and how children pick up. So when you're talking about an environment, you're talking about the attributes of the characters in the story, or rhymes while you do. Say, for example, we are doing a rhyme called Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. What do you mean by twinkling? Right? When my son was very young, when I taught him Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, he asked me, what do you mean by twinkle, Amma? I said, twinkle means shining. So I finished doing this, and my maid came to actually clean the vessels, and she finished cleaning and she kept it, and then I just switched on the light, and the light reflected on the vessels, and because the vessels were wet on the droplets, and they actually shined. And my son came running and said, Mama twinkling, Mama twinkle, 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 twinkle. And that's how he related. When I said twinkling, it's shining, it shines, and this is a star, it shines. But I never related it with this one. But he was able to, and that's how vocabulary builds. Right. So it is very important for us when we do rhymes and stories and even paragraphs, etc. It is very important for us to actually build that vocabulary, and that's how children pick up the vocabulary in a context. And support reading with visuals. Yeah. Support reading with visuals. When there are visuals, it is very easy for the child to actually relate to and comprehend quickly. Otherwise, what happens? If there is no visual and you're reading something, say, for example, now I'll just tell all of you to visualize with me. So I'm talking about something that is very red, it is round in color, and it is very small, and everybody has it, and it is easy to carry. What did you all visualize? Tell me. And I'm not showing you anything. I'm telling you, I'm reading it out for you. Right? This is very small. This looks like this. This looks like this. So what did you visualize with my description? Round, small, easy to carry. Everybody is having. You can put it in a bag. What did you all visualize? Ball, coins, coin. Anything else? Apple. Wonderful, ma'am. Coins. Bin the orange. Some fruit. Watch. Ball. I was visualizing a ring, finger ring. Right. So if without a visual, the child clock, the child will imagine whatever he wants. So that's why, because the child still is not, has not reached to that level, it is very, very important for all of us to actually support our reading with a visual. And that's why when you look at children's literature, they are highly, highly visually illustrated. Right. So, 10% of text and 90% visuals. With next education, we have 80 to 20 picture to text ratio. So we have 80% visuals in our books and 20% text. And that's what we maintained. That is because it is so important. Without a visual, the child will not be able to comprehend. Picture walk before reading. This is something which we all need to, start inculcating. So you have beautiful illustrated textbooks. Open the textbook, ask the child to look at the pictures, talk about what is there, ask them to observe the entire thing. This way, when you're doing a picture walk, you're also inculcating observation skills in children. That is really, really important. Right. It's not only observing the text, so they will learn to observe the environment as well. And observation is literally a very, very higher order thinking skills. Only when you learn to observe, so it will actually help you pick up danger. It will help you be safe. It will help you, be happy. It will help you to serve somebody. It will help you to help somebody. So that is really, really, really important. Model tracking print. So when you are doing reading, you model how to track print. And repeated reading. So read repeatedly and encourage story retelling. So basically, as in when you do the story, ask the child to retell the story, do comprehension with the story, ask them what did they like about the story, ask them to draw a story, ask them to retell in their own words, ask them to change the characters, ask them if they want to change one single character of the story, which one would they want to change? Suppose, say, Lion and the Mouse story. If you have to change one character, which character would you change? So this is something which will help children, think. And that's how creativity in children come out. Once I was doing a story of the thirsty crow long back. So I asked if the crow is not able to find pebbles, what would it do? Yeah, who is your favorite character and why? Correct, ma'am. So children said, surprisingly, I was damn surprised. They said the crow will, if the crow will go fly and then find a straw to drink water. Wonderful strategy, right? I never thought of a thirsty crow story to have a straw in it. And, one child told me, um, one child told me, no, why will the crow drink the water, ma'am? Because it is not able to drink the water. It was not able to reach the water. It will fly, go and drink a Coca-Cola. I said, wow, right? So these are some things which that would be a modern crow, correct, ma'am? Right. So no, ma'am, crow would never die. No giving up attitude at all. With this generation, animals and even children also, no giving up. Right. At any cost, they will achieve. That's how it is. Right. So that really, really, helps children. When you start asking children to retell the story and give these prompts, they'll be able to do a better job. Right. So reading key takeaways: focus on meaning, not accuracy. Read aloud every day. Encourage prediction and discussion during stories. Accept picture reading as a real reading. make reading joyful and pressure-free. Any questions at this point of time, teachers? Great. Should we go ahead? Yes. Now, these are some of the writing questions for all of us. Are we giving children meaningful opportunities to write every day? Because there are so many requests that come to me saying that, ma'am, children don't want to write. So we have to really understand why children are not able to write. I have a question, ma'am. I think somebody posted a question saying that what should we do if children are reluctant to reading? Now, first identify what is the problem. Why are they reluctant to reading? One, if children are not able to comprehend text, they don't read if they are very young learners. And if they are still more younger, where still text was not, print was not, or letters were not introduced, that means the pictures are not engaging for the child. That's why they're not reading. You're not showing them a picture that is interesting to them. Right? So that's why children do not find it interesting. So if they're not ready to read means, that means there must be some reason. One, they're not able to comprehend the letters. So go back, do a recap of letters, do very nice activities, wait till the child is able to complete all the letters. And sometimes they have a problem with blending. Maybe that is a problem. So identify and diagnose what is the problem first, and then probably we will be able to do something about it. Okay? Yeah. If the child is a visual learner, he will not show interest in the text. Ma'am, visual learners are not 100% visual learners, ma'am. There'll be only 80% visual learners, but 20% definitely, for sure, text will have to go. Yeah. Yes, labeling the objects in the class would definitely help. Yeah. So, are we giving meaningful opportunities to write every day? I see teachers giving one full page writing of letter A or one full page writing of 3-letter words. Is that really a meaningful opportunity for the child? What interest will the child have to write it? So boring. 4 letters in line and probably 8 lines. That means 32 times. Right? Is that a meaningful opportunity for the child? Number one. Number two, are we really accepting scribbling and drawing as early writing? Is scribbling and drawing early writing? Yes. Yes. How many of us give drawing as an activity every day for children? I always suggest schools, just below your blackboard or a green board, have that space just below your board, have that space painted in green or black, and keep pieces of chalk available for children and let children explore and draw. Keep very nice loads of newspapers and crayons available for children. Let them draw on the newspapers. If you have access to printers close by to your school, go to them. They have a lot of waste white papers and used papers. Collect them and keep them as a resource in your classroom. Give crayons to children. They will draw. Drawing is a wonderful activity. Scribbling is a wonderful activity. I think we should see scribbling and drawing as early writing. Are we allowing children to draw and talk before we expect them to write? Unfortunately, we don't have this much time, in our academic year, but ideally, we do place black chalk papers on the door. Correct, ma'am. Very nice. So drawing and talking before we expect them to write. Montessori does a bit, but I think the first settling time, the first 2 months or first 45 days of settling time that we have, I think we should focus more on drawing and talking rather than pushing children to trace and write strokes, blah, blah, whatever. Are we supporting fine motor development alongside writing? Paper ball making, zipping, unzipping, scooping, threading beads. Turning pages is a fine motor activity. Turning pages of a book. Counting is a fine motor activity. Screwing, unscrewing water bottles is a fine motor activity. Turning on and off taps is a fine motor activity. Zipping bags is a fine motor activity. Buttoning shirts is a fine motor activity. So where there is a will, there is a way. So it's only for us to actually, be open to do everything. You don't need any resources. I always tell teachers, you don't need to buy lacing boards. You don't need to buy buttoning boards, or you don't need to buy peg boards to actually do a fine motor activity. Very, very simple. Very simple. Napkin folding is a fine motor activity. Every child has a napkin. Every child has a water bottle. Every child has a bag. Helping children zip and unzip. Open and close a water bottle. Turn the pages of a book from first to last. Ting, 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 ting. Right? If you get them to fine motor activity, wonderful fine motor activity. Right? So there are many things around us which actually can become a part of fine motor development for children. So I think we should push. Are we valuing children's ideas more than neat handwriting? For us, everything has to be neat. In Montessori frames are there, ma'am. Yes, buttoning their own shirt. Exactly, buttoning their own shirt. No, आजकल के schools में we don't have button shirts. I see mostly schools having t-shirts nowadays. So even when we were young, we were having shoelaces to tie, and tying a shoelace is a wonderful Montessori activity, and so beautifully children learn. But nowadays you have Velcro, right? Yeah, Play-Doh is a wonderful activity, right? So are we valuing children's ideas more than neat handwriting? Most of the time for us, it is neatness. When I go to schools, when we do a lot of classroom audits, when as a part of audit, we open children's books, check their handwriting, completion of syllabus, etc. So I see most of the time everything being neat. I mean, it really wonders, how could children write so neatly? One is they must have had a support of the teacher or an adult to actually complete the books. Or parents or teachers themselves must have written, because it is humanly impossible for the child to write neatly or to do the fine motor activities like fingerprinting, or whatever printing activities or pasting activities that we do. They will not be able to, because their fine motor development as well as eye-hand coordination is not very well developed. So when I see neat work, for me it is proven that teachers helped or adults at home helped the children. Right? I think children's work has to be shabby. If the work is not shabby, I think it is not the child's work. It is not the learning of the child. It is the learning of the teacher. Right? So I think we as teachers need to leave children to be messy, allow them to do a shabby work, and then look at improvement. Unless and until something is messy, children will not be able to learn. So it is very, very important for us to actually understand and leave that space to be messy for children. Now let us see what is writing in early years for me. Say, write, draw, and then write. You say a word, draw it, and then write it. For me, it is making meaning. I'm just saying and writing. See, a cat, ka at a cat, ka at a cat. For me, it is not making sense, teachers. It is not making sense. And model writing daily, every day, they have to write. Accept invented spelling. We'll discuss what is invented spelling in the next slide. And provide sentence starters. When children have to write, especially for UKG children, if you can give them sentence starters, they'll start with phrases. And strengthen fine motor skills. Keep practice short and frequent. Provide a print-rich environment. We discussed this, having labels around, right? Make writing purposeful. Create reasons to write. Why should I write? Right? So if you're not making writing purposeful and children are not finding a reason to write, there is no point. They will not be able to write. And celebrate effort, not perfection. What is effort? So long back, while I was heading a chain of schools in Hyderabad, I was on a visit to one of the schools, and the teacher was teaching. This is a UKG class. I still remember the face of the child, and the teacher wrote 3 and 4 letter words on the board and Teacher said the child to look at the board and copy them in the notebook. And then very nicely children have copied, and the teacher said, now submit your notebooks. The children submitted, and the teacher started correcting the notebooks, and she corrected one child's notebook, and she called the child and she gave the book back. The teacher, I was literally sitting in the class. The child took the book, he went into his place and he sat, and he was so upset. I'm not sure why. So, and then he came to the teacher with the book. I should really appreciate the boldness of the child. And he showed it to the teacher. And he asked teacher, what did you write here? Teacher wrote some comment. Teacher said, ye kya hai? And the teacher said, teacher wrote a comment saying, write neatly. And the child was super upset about it. And he literally said, write neatly, or kitna neatly likhu teacher. Or kitna neatly likhu teacher. It was literally shocking for me, because I never expected the child would ask, number one, and teacher was also shocked because I was also sitting there. And I took the notebook, I saw. And teacher literally wrote the same statement, and then I said, go and sit in your place. Then I asked the teacher, why did you write it? And she said, ma'am, you looked at the book, right? The child did not write neatly. I said, what is your definition of neatness? She said, ma'am, he did not write neatly. I said, yeah, I mean, so you should have a definition for neatness, right? I mean, what is your understanding? How do you define that neatness? The teacher said, ma'am, he did not write in 4 lines. Okay. And she said, ma'am, the first letter was not capital. Some places he wrote small, some places he wrote capital. And some letters did not touch the red line. Some letters did not touch the down red line. And I said, that is what you're supposed to write? You cannot just say write neatly. So what did the child say? Or kitna neat? For the child, that is neatness. Right? How will a child know? Right? Reason to write. Reason to write neatly. Why should I write neatly? Why is my writing not neat? Right? So celebrate that effort. The child had written. The teacher must have just circled and said, see, this did not touch red line. Next time when you write this letter, just ensure that this touches the red line or this touches the neat. See, I wrote a small letter S here, but you wrote a capital letter S here. So this should be small. Go, erase it, correct it, and bring. That is the feedback you give. And that is what really makes a sense for the child to actually write next time. But if you just say write neatly, and the child was like, he lost literally hope in writing again. We don't want that in early years, because once that hope is lost there, that loss for life. Right? So let us not have that. Right? So these are the strategies, and this is writing has to be moved gradually, right? From scribbling to drawing, then doing letter-like forms, and then invented spelling, and then simple sentences and simple paragraphs. Let us not rush these stages. Every stage has to be dealt at its own pace. And that's why drawing plays a very, very important role, because when they draw, they relate it to letters, they relate it to pictures, they relate it to objects, they relate it to symbols, right? And that's why immediately they'll be able to relate. And then letters also, they'll be able to recognize properly. Right? Now, invented spelling. You know, children write spellings and say they are right. They are correct. Right? So, my cat. M-I-C-A-T. That is also correct. Right? So let children do the invented spelling. That's what I said. It is a process. It's not a perfection. Right? So let them start off. And this is where our intervention as a facilitator comes. My, M-I, it is not M-I, it should be M-Y. My is written as M-Y. And that is how you correct. And once you correct, that is a lifelong correction for them. They will never ever forget. Right? Dog. Dog. Right? Water. Water. I went home. Went. Right? So beautiful. Sun is hot. I like apple. I think nowadays, with all these chat short forms, children are all writing in invented spelling only, not the correct spelling. If you all have, children at home, their text is like this only. Please is PLZ, not even Z, PL only, right? Thank you is TQ, right? Yeah. So these are developmental stages. Scribbling, marks have some meaning. Controlled scribbling, which is a motor control. Yeah, you is you, ma'am. Yes. And drawing with meaning is expressing ideas. And letter-like forms, it is print awareness. Invented spelling, sound and letter connection. And early conventional writing is sentence writing. So this is how children develop, from marks having meaning to motor control to expressing ideas to print awareness to sound letter connection, and finally moving to phrases and sentence writing. So these are the stages. So that is why you have to push scribbling, controlled scribbling, drawing with meaning, and then introduce tracing and letters, and then invented spelling, and then conventional writing. Any doubts at this point, teachers? Readiness activities to develop writing skills. The scribbling is wonderful readiness activity to develop writing skills. Drawing is a wonderful activity. Controlled scribbling is a wonderful activity. Controlled coloring is a wonderful activity. Great. Right? So let us look at the key takeaways. Scribbles are not meaningless. They are the child's first attempt at writing. And copying is not writing alone. Expressing ideas is writing. I see most of the teachers, A liko and then each all 10 times copy. Right? That itself is not writing. Yeah? And drawing is not separate from writing. It is a part. It is a first beginning expression of writing. Invented spelling is not a mistake. It shows sound awareness. And writing is not only about letters. It is expressing ideas. And mistakes in writing are not a failure. They are a part of learning. And children will have to make mistakes. If they're not making mistakes, that means there is an adult support. It is not the child's independent work. I think this is something which we need to always remember as early years educators. Let us look at some myths in, all these 4 skills. Most of us feel if children are writing very early, that means they are intelligent. But in reality, it's not one skill that is important. It's all the language skills that are important. A quiet child is a weak learner. Probably he is a strong listener. Are we really assessing that child who is not able to speak on his listening skills? Don't know. And worksheets is learning, but play is real learning. Activity is a real learning. Early reading is intelligence. Understanding matters more. I see most of the children reading, but when we ask them to comprehend, when we ask a question about a small paragraph, you look at grade 2, grade 3 children, they're reading. But when we go back, when we ask them to pause and ask a question from the 4 or 5 sentences they read, they're having a problem. That means understanding is an issue. Active child is naughty. Obviously, they're naughty, but they're learning. Because they're active, they're moving. And slow writer is a weak learner. Probably the child is thinking, and thinking may take time, number 1. Number 2 is fine motor development. Some problem with fine motor development. Muscles have not still very well developed, so give some activities to actually build these muscles. Talking child is distracted, but the child is having a very, very good language. Messy work is a careless child? No. Learning can be messy, and learning should be messy. And teacher teaching is learning? No. The child's involvement is learning. So these are some realities that we need to move from these myths to reality. So that is why, now everybody is calling a teacher a facilitator, because the child is already coming with a bit of knowledge to the school, and we want the child to involve, be a part of his learning, and the teacher to stand there and support the child in the learning, help the child, allow the child to make mistakes, and that is where the teachers, I mean, allow the child in the sense, no, don't push the child to make mistakes, but allow the child to do things independently. If at all there's a mistake, that is where our intervention as facilitators should be there, in the child's learning. Right. So these are the big 6 key takeaways for our session. Listening comes first. Speaking grows through interaction. Reading is meaning making. Writing starts before letters. And play is the best language teacher. Teachers should model, not dominate. Listening and speaking are the roots, and reading and writing are the fruits. I think that is something which so I think we are somewhere, not very, very strong at the roots. That's why our fruits are very weak. Maybe, I don't know. So teachers, you're not just teaching letters, you're building voices, confidence, and thinking. Thank you for the very, very important work that you're doing every day. And let us all, continue doing the good work with a bit of amendments that we discussed today in the session. So today's teaching is not about teaching fast, it is about teaching smarter. So let us all become smart facilitators. Any questions? Anything you want to discuss, teachers? Anything that you want me to you want to ask? We still have 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you so much for a wonderful interaction. Pattern for online teaching, definitely. I don't recommend having an online teaching for preschool children. If at all you want to teach children something online, it should be more stories related to any concept that you do. You're doing a letter, do a story about a letter. You're doing a number, do a story about number. And that's how, because teacher is not physically present, and so we will not be able to do much of job, and you don't have anything physical with young learners. Everything has to be tangible.